Coach Maxwell is in his 18th season with the University of Iowa Strength and Conditioning staff and is the head strength and conditioning coach for Olympic sports. He's responsible for men's basketball, rowing, women's gymnastics, and men's golf. Prior to joining the Hawkeyes in 1997, Maxwell served as assistant strength and conditioning coach at the University of Kansas from 91 to 97, where he oversaw strength and conditioning programs for the Jayhawk Olympic sports, including basketball, baseball, and swimming and diving. He also assisted with the Kansas football program. Maxwell earned his bachelor's degree in physical education from East Carolina University in 1990, where he competed for the Pirate football team. He served as a graduate assistant strength and conditioning coach at Kansas before becoming a full-time member of the Kansas staff. Bill also earned a master's degree in education from Graceland University in May of 2009. Maxwell was named a Master Strength and Conditioning Coach by the Collegiate Strength and Conditioning Coaches Association in May 2009. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Maxwell.
I don't know. We'll hold that. We'll see. Hi. Welcome to our presentation. First of all, I want to talk about the word intern. Intern, we celebrate the word. We truly celebrate it because it's a big part of our program. It helps us achieve success at a high level. We embrace it, we encourage it, and that is how we present ourselves. So we want to make sure that that is spread throughout our program to all our athletes, to all of our interns. And I say welcome to our presentation because everyone is involved in the success of this program that we have. My staff will also be speaking along with one of our former interns to get his perspective on his experience in the program. With that, my staff is seated here, and then we are missing one person, Landon Evans. Landon Evans and his wife Stephanie and big sister Callan welcomed a new family member, Mia, on April 24th. So he needed to be at home. But that's also why we had this great technology presentation. So that's all of his work. So if something screws up, we'll know who to blame on that. But he's got it going well. All right, thanks to the CSCCA. We're humbled to speak before our peers. This is truly an honor. Spent a lot of years in the profession, watched many people speak, and we take it with great pride that we're able to speak before you. And we're going to do our absolute best to give a great presentation. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. This presentation is a little bit different than what you have in your packet, but the bones are there with your handout. And I say this because this program means so much to me and us. I mean, I truly believe this. We have the best intern program in America, bar none. Our people will go out, and if you want to hire good people, I'm telling you, you want great graduate assistants, you want great assistants, our people are well-versed. And I have no problem saying that. We have the best program. And with that, this program, as I explain it and as my assistants bring it to you, I want you to understand that this fits our personality. This fits what we do, okay? There will be parts here that will be implemented that you can utilize in your program, but the biggest thing is take that and fit it to your program. Don't try to be 2.0 some other school, okay? Be the best school that you have. Okay? And that's one of the things that I had a hard time early in my career. I kept trying to emulate someone else. And then I finally decided, like, okay, I need to be the best Coach Maxwell I can be. I need to build my program the way that I want to do it, okay? So with that, real quick, we talk about presence and we talk about different things. And real quick, what I want us to do, just while you're sitting there, I just want you to envision you're winning the race. You're winning the 100-meter dash at the Olympics, okay? Let's go big. All right, you're winning the gold medal. you know you're 8 meters ahead of someone else. You're just blowing it out of the water, okay? What do is you get ready. First thing you do, you're crossing that finish line, you take your arms up and you're like, here. So let's all real quick, just take that and just do it right there. Yes, I'm in control. I manage the world. With that, you feel a surge of power. You feel a presence. And this is something we talk to our interns about. We work with them. We want them to have a presence on the floor. We want them to command the group, right? And we spend a great deal of time talking about these little nuances of their job as they get out on the floor and they work with their student athletes. And that also builds great confidence. And it builds great confidence for them. Empowerment. When I was searching for words to title this was the first word that just immediately popped to my mind. I thought about it and I was like, okay, well, let me see what the definition is. So, looked it up. Make someone stronger and more confident, especially in controlling their life and claiming their rights. This strikes a chord with me because of my story. And I kind of have to share this story because it lets you know the perspective of what everything we base in our program and how everything flows through that. I was at the University of Kansas, graduate assistant in 1990. Yeah, it was a long time ago. 1 year, then got promoted to assistant. Left there, came to Iowa, was director of Olympic sports. Fantastic, great 10 years. Tried to implement things the way that I thought it should be. And I was just like, hey, I'm a bull in a china shop. We're getting this done. Well, I worked hard. I put in 80-hour weeks just like everyone in this room's done. That was my badge of honor. 10 years into it, I get fired. I'm fired, and I'm like, I got 4 kids. I got to figure out what I'm going to do. Had never dreamed about it. So what do? Okay? I was in a tailspin. I'm telling you, 8 months, I was the most bitter man in America. I would go to another conference from another organization, and as I was there, I would see people just be bitter. And at that time, I decided to attend the CSCCA conference, all right? And it was just at that moment I came, and I was pretty inspired. I was like, wow, everyone's professional. Everyone has polos. Everyone has their shirt tucked in. Everyone's, we're not having tank tops. We're not seeing flip-flops walking through the crowd. Everyone's a strength coach. It gave me hope for my future. And I tell you, the conference was here. I sat for the test. The conference was here, and it's 2008. I sat for the test. I took it, and then on our way back, and it was at the Nashville Convention Center. On the way back, I remember talking to my assistants, and I had one assistant, Damon Davis, who's at Auburn, and then Rudy Thomas, who is coaching professional volleyball players in California right now. So I remember talking to him, I was like, I'm going to have a great program. I said, I'm going to have a great program. And that's just what it was. At that moment, that was the moment things switched for me. And when it switched, I turned to many different sources. And I had to switch my mindset completely, 180. And then I found inspiration in some of the quirkiest places. You may think this is crazy, but this is what I did. I just started immersing myself in positive thinking, positive talk. Joel Osteen, I listened to him just tons of times. Whether you're a religious person or not, it talks about the possibilities that exist. And it's your mindset. Everything we look at is a possibility. I don't look at the restrictions that we have. Tell me how we can do this. If it's a 5-year plan, tell me how we can do it in 6 months. What can it be done? We'll find someone. You need money? You only need one person to give the money. You want to be rich? You only need one idea. You just got to find it. You got to think creative. You got to think outside the box, and you got to find it, and you got to have that desire to get there. Cesar Millan, Dog Whisperer. Watched a lot of those shows. I had to cut out cable because my salary went down. Just so happened to be the one TV channel that we had, and it had a lot of reruns of Caesar Milan. So if you're going to watch TV, you're watching Dog Whisperer, or you're watching nothing. And so at that moment, you know, I watched a lot of it, and it was kind of interesting. And I was like, wow. But he talks about a calm, assertive approach. How can I confront people when I need to deal with a problem, but yet keep it controlled? I was always aggressive in pushing my agenda. I wouldn't stop and listen. But I need to learn how to keep it calm to achieve our goal. And because we want to have a win-win situation, like Stephen Covey talks about. You want to have a win-win situation. And then Shawshank Redemption. And I watched this kind of about the time I went to the conference. And a great quote from that movie was, get busy living or get busy dying. And I had to flip the switch. You know, my wife says, you can visit Pity City, but you can't live there. So you better get used to it and you better move on. And at that moment, I said, I'm moving on. I was fortunate that the director that replaced me decided to keep me on. So then I moved to a weight room and a racquetball court. I trained swimming, diving, and a racquetball court. I trained rowing, I trained cheerleading, I trained dance. I'm going from training Kansas men's basketball with 4 first-round draft choices. #1 team in the country, to train cheerleading and dance at the end of my day at 7 p.m., men's gymnastics also, and a racquetball court. But hey, I embrace it. That's what we were doing, and I just wanted to build it and get prepared for my next step in my life. Next step, 4 years later, I'm promoted. From that promotion, I was reinserted back as director, 2011, and now we're on just a growth curve that's just exponential. Right now we're doing special things, and my staff, I love them. I love my interns, and it's because it's a very special place. We're doing some great things, and when I say we love coming to work, I wake up and I'm just like, hey, I want to get out of the house and I want to get to work. I wake up early, quick coffee, go to work. So that's what I do, and I'm glad that our people can have that moment. Our culture, this is the basis of everything that we try to build. Obviously, I do handwritten notes on paper, so I'm old school in that fact. So, standard. These aspects are non-negotiable. These are our standards, and we have 3 of them. 1, each person has value, must work daily to improve. All right? And when we do, how we address this, every intern is called Coach Johnson, Coach Armile, Coach Ferrati, whatever that may be. That's how they are addressed when they're on the floor and they're anywhere in the presence of a student athlete. This gives them authority. We bestow that authority upon them. And we're religious about this. We do it all the time. It's not a sometime thing. It's an all the time thing. With that, all our student athletes know that. That's how they address them. That's how they address them. They understand that they don't have the greatest power. They understand that, like, if there's something critical, they're going to have to come to us as the full-time staff. But this helps them when they're on the floor coaching. 2, we're committed to the education process in all aspects. Coaching, voice, and presence. Our people will be going over this a little bit later. Teaching, progression of exercise, program writing, education, training theory, monitoring, interview, application materials, job process, and then life. We spend a great deal of time about life. Our character and our integrity with which we operate is paramount. A lot of these talks are happening at 7 p.m. when I finished a day that started at 6 a.m. and I just got done with basketball practice, and I come back and I'm like, okay, check my email real quick, and then one of the interns will walk in and he'll want to talk. I take that time and talk, as well as all my staff. If we don't, then we'll create time. That's the biggest thing our staff does. It's across the board. There's no negotiation with that. And with that, 3, accountability for everyone involved in the intern development process. And when I say everyone, everyone on my staff is mandated that they work with our interns, that they promote them, that they work with them, they talk with them, and that they help develop them. Everyone. We have reviews at mid-semester, and we have reviews at the final wrap-up. We have a lot of times in between we'll have a conversation in between, but our intern coordinator is our head coach. And when I say our head coach, she delegates all responsibilities, even to me. I answer to her in questions about interns. And then she has full authority to handle those situations. So if an intern has a problem, they go to her. And she may refer it back to me just to make sure I'm okay with something, but she has full authority. And so right there at this point, I'm going to introduce Gabriella Quiggle, who is our intern coordinator.
Okay, so getting into the gist of our internship program. Essentially, you have your objective. So that's the purpose of your internship. So as a department, you need to decide what's appropriate and what you want out of your internship program and vice versa. What are they going to give back to you? What do you want them to experience? If you want it to be observational, great. If you want it to be more of a practicum setting, fine. If you want them to coach and be interactive, you need to decide as a staff what's appropriate for your department, okay? So with Iowa, developing coaches, teaching coaches, the learning, et cetera, all that is unsaid. They understand that they're going to get that experience with us. However, our why, our objective, is much more than that. It's very extended. Our why. We desire to see each person reach their best self. We're all individuals. So everybody in this room is individual in how they coach, how they approach situations. So are your volunteer staff. It is not our responsibility to make mirror images of ourselves. Their self is something that we do not change at all. So when you think about our volunteer coaches and their best self, how can we use their characteristics and turn them into future coaches or athletic trainers? How do we mold their best self for their future goals? Many of our volunteer coaches don't fit the standard mold, and I'll talk about that in recruitment. Coach Warwald will talk about it in our coaching progressions as well. But a notable point moving forward is who's to determine what mold is appropriate for our profession. The how. So this is the experience. This is essentially our entire curriculum. Our volunteer coaches will be involved in everything listed here, and we'll get into a lot more detail with that as well. The list is extremely adaptable, though. Again, our volunteer coaches are very unique. They may have current interests. They may have certain questions. You should be able to adapt your curriculum to be able to help them grow with whatever interests that they may have. On top of that, new technologies, current events. If something's coming up in the profession, you want to ingrain that into your curriculum, make some space for that as well. We do that at Iowa. Keyword is support. Support in their new roles. So what skills do they have? What talents or abilities do we anticipate within that individual? And how can we make that flourish? How can we implement those things? The what? Our objective. Great intern program where people move forward with a helping spirit and desire to make positive impact in the world. It's a pretty profound statement. However, I'm sure everybody in this room and the people sitting here with me, what we do as a profession, I think, is extremely profound in our interactions with student athletes. So, I also believe that what we do as a profession isn't only us. That is not what makes us up. We are not just strength and conditioning coaches. So we want to develop people to make that impact, whether it's strength and conditioning or not. That's what our internship program strives for. Recruitment. So how we require our people. This is done a lot easily through free websites, so Football Scoop, Indeed, Strength Performance. It's pretty easy to go ahead and post that. I think a lot of students out there are using that social media, websites, internet as well. So that's a very easy way to go about doing it. The biggest tools that we utilize are word of mouth and our own personal website. So word of mouth, news travels, good news, bad news. People will refer their experiences to their peers. A lot of inquiries that we get are from, I heard from Coach such and such about your program. I'm very interested. Cool, send me your resume, application. A majority of our inquiries come through our website. Our website, on the bottom, HawkeyeStrength.com, okay? Coach Dinkelman maintains that through the IT department as well. It's a fantastic website, all right? So if you do not have one, I recommend getting with your IT department and creating one. If you do have one, you need to keep it current, or else it's going to lose its appeal. People aren't going to want to visit your website if it's the same thing popping up all the time. So update it. Have somebody on staff constantly update it. Coach Dinkelman updates every single day, whether that be Twitter, our mission statement, etc. So that's our biggest getter as far as internship opportunities. So the website, what it contains, obviously it has your mission statement, facility information, articles, Twitter, links to Facebook. There's no limits to that. Current events. So we also have on there, obviously, is our internship page. Current interns with their biographies. We're giving them ownership to be a part of something. So they have current biographies up there as well, pictures, backgrounds, and then there's contact information, former testimonials from our past interns, talking about their experiences. And that is where they can find their contact information, whether it be via the website with Coach Dinkelman, but my information is on there as well as far as internship opportunities. So they just send me their cover letter and resume. Every cover letter and resume I review. I think I'm doing a disservice to individuals that are making an effort to learn and grow if I don't look at their information. I look at every single cover letter and resume. What I'm looking for is passion. You can notice things in cover letters about interests, backgrounds, resume as well, but I want to notice some sort of enthusiasm to want to learn and be in the profession and grow. Obviously, previous experience is desired, but it's not needed. We are here to teach. Iowa, our department, we are a teaching internship program. The only requirement that we have is that they are CPR AED certified, because they're working with student athletes or coaching as well. Punctuation, spelling, grammar, correct names, correct conferences, those are the little things that are my pet peeves. So if you have students or even working with your interns as well, just read over their stuff, make sure it's correct, because that is very often a quick no thank you for me personally. When you're going into your research as far as your recruitment goes, go beyond the cover letter and the resume and the current references. Check other references. Look at other schools that they've been involved in. Go to their past as well. Social media is huge. And Coach Dinkelman will talk a little bit more on that. It can be a turnoff for the position, not only internships, but I think full-times as well. But for us, during the recruitment process, I use it as a teaching method. So I will check some social media. Google's a great outlet for that. But I will check every social media account of a prospective person before the phone interview, and it will be turning into more of a teaching method during that phone interview. So for example, I'll be asking questions during the phone interview, then I'll say something like, that's a great answer for your teaching progression for the clean. But what would a professional think of your Facebook profile picture when you're at a party double fisting some Bud Lights? More often than not, they're usually shocked at their lack of understanding that that information is available, but you're able to teach them so that they can move forward. Well, they'll change it. They always change it, but we're here to teach. Why haven't they known that information already? So if they change it, reapply, then we can have a conversation. But even in the phone interview, even in the recruitment, we should be teaching young people, young coaches, about the profession and how to be professional. I think that's extremely important. So, interviews. They're set up via email. They're done mostly by the phone. We sometimes do a Skype interview with prospective employees, but mostly they are done by the phone. Very extensive part. It lasts 40 minutes to an hour with these prospective employees. So the normal questions are asked. If you want to ask certain questions, you can. We ask questions about teaching progressions. What's your 5-year plan? Give me a good book. You can ask whatever questions that you want. Okay? What I'm trying to get from the recruiting aspect of things is an enthusiasm in their voice. Are they comfortable speaking with me and answering questions? And then how inquisitive are they about what we're doing? Have they looked at the website? What do you know about Coach Maxwell? So it's more of a conversation. I want to feel out this individual. All I'm looking for are good people. That's all we want. I want good people. After we get through those questions, I go into a very elevated sales pitch of our internship program. That's usually the part that lasts the longest. Standard start date, completion date, all those things are covered. But then I get into our expectations. I get into the backgrounds of our staff. I get into our curriculum. I get into what it's like to be a part of our internship program. Whether we decide to hire this individual or not, I want them to understand that there are great programs out there that you can be a part of. And if we do not hire the person after the phone interview, I reach out to every single person who we say no thank you to, and I give them a reason why. A lot of them will come back and say, Coach, you said I needed to work on my progressions. I did. I'm reapplying. Here it is. Great, you improved. So everything about our department is covered. Then after the interview, if I like them, I need to make sure that my support staff likes them as well, and then we move forward. The offer can be done by the phone, done by the email. I give them some time to think about it, though. I think a lot of students have to relocate, especially if it's an unpaid internship. Ours are unpaid. You got to give them time to think about, okay, I really want to do this, but what's relocating going to be like? It's going to cost money. What's Iowa City like? Do I have a car? Might have to take a bus. Give them time to think about that decision. I give them a week, and then we move forward with subsequent emails and interactions. Coach Walrod is now going to come up here and speak on coaching and teaching.
So I have several objectives that I definitely am going to cover, but just real quickly, I'm just reminded daily, and this is a great platform that I'm even enlightened at a higher level. I was at dinner last night, and a good friend of mine asked me, like, what do I love about my current job? Like, I literally enjoy and love coming to work every day. And I know Coach Maxwell expressed that as well, but it's a daily thing. And the internship, while we're here, is a big part of that. But so moving on. You see the same quote on the upper right hand here that Coach Maxwell opened with, the definition of empowerment. And I left it up on this slide talking about coaching and the elements that we move in and talk about with our interns, is because their strengths are identified early in the process. Coach Quiggle does a phenomenal job through the screening process, finding out their background, kind of where they're at on the continuum of their skill sets, their knowledge base. And like she said, we're open. It doesn't matter if you have zero experience, as long as you have energy and willingness to learn. So I left this up here because those strengths are identified, and I'm in my first full year with this department, and I see the strengths identified, cultivated, and I see the confidence, and it's directly concurrent. And it's directly concurrent. When those strengths are identified and we're able to put them in positions to exploit that and earn respect from the student athletes and from the sport coaches, we see their confidence just bloom, and then that puts them, it just gets the snowball rolling. It gets their perspective just broadened, their perception is narrowed in, and they know exactly where they're going. So with that, those strengths are identified, and Coach Quiggle assigns us some interns. She basically asked me, how many interns do you want my first semester with this department? And I'm like, shoot, man, like, give me one. I mean, I'll be good, you know? And then I get 4, and I'm like, what do I do? I want them to have an impact. But that's why the screening process is so extensive. It allows me, when I'm planning the annual plan and I know who my interns are, I can kind of look at where they've been, what their experiences are, and that just gets me immediate inclusion for that particular intern. A small example is it's allowed me with our baseball team to be branched out and running three different programs within one workout, because it allows me to kind of step back and look at the bigger picture, and I know I can trust a certain intern over here working with the catchers, another intern's working with the position players, and the other one's with the pitchers, and it allows me just to kind of scan in and out and go where need be when something big comes up. But so this the immediate inclusion of that part, and we know their skill sets right away, and and those will always be tweaked because we see growth, so we give them more roles and responsibilities, and we expect that. And like I said, it just allows them opportunities to be successful. We put them in elements of their strength, so that just allows easier growth. Coaching styles. I know, I think Coach Maxwell touched on this already, but we are all very, very different, and we know our interns are very, very different. So we don't want them to be a direct mold of myself or Coach Evans or Coach Maxwell or Coach D or Coach Quiggle. We want them to find their own self and accept that and embrace it and learn what it is they're good at and be aware of what it is they're not good at. I've talked a lot about their strengths and exploiting those, but we also want them to have an awareness, like Coach Quiggle said, with having a social media picture up. Why has no one ever told you that that's unacceptable? So we want them to be aware of things that they should avoid or things that might be a turnoff, either through a professional interview or with a student athlete. Others have taken different paths. They've taken those different paths because they've had different experiences. They've had different thought processes that influence those experiences. And when they chose which direction of the fork in the road on that path, they've taken that fork in the road or which left or right they took because of experiences they had, because of decisions that they made. And those decisions that we make continuously, those are what our behaviors become. So we're constantly getting them to think in that way and think bigger picture. ABC and balance. The ABC to me takes me back to my first internship, and always be coaching. Always be coaching. And I'm going to speak about it in terms of a little more all-encompassing than just coaching presence on the floor. Always be coaching to me right now is always be turned on, always be engaged. When you're driving into work in the morning, you're thinking about it. When you're at work, you're obviously fully immersed. When you're on your way home at night, you're thinking about it. Always being turned on, always being engaged, never shutting the mind off. It just gives you more practice at what you want to do. And I know Coach Maxwell kind of touched on this already as well, but I've been really big, as of lately, I've kind of found and been a big fan of Tim Ferriss. And with the always being turned on, you have your 10-year plan or 5-year plan. What is it that is stopping you from getting that done in just a few short months? And if you're not always fully immersed with what's going on, that's usually your barrier. So that resonates a lot with me, and thinking about what I wanted to talk about here, it made a lot of sense to tie that in. But kind of contradictory to all of that is balance. When you're not at work, you better be shut off. You better have a way that you know recharges your batteries. And I know I talk with the interns that assist with me on my teams about things like outside of that, the life talks. Like that's kind of a lot of those type of subjects. What is it that recharges your batteries? I know what mine are, and I can give my experiences to our interns, but I don't expect that to be the exact same. It's pretty fun coming to work because a lot of us have similar enjoyments outside of work. My recharging is being outside and on my big green egg, and I know my staff really enjoys that because I can be right there, and I'm not really even talking to them. I'm in my element, I'm cooking, and they reap the benefits of that, half hour or an hour and a half later, depending on what we're doing. So I have, my big green egg, my wife and family, and I'm a pretty proud owner of a small dog. So that was brought to my attention of a little Jack Russell Terrier, and she's explosive, and we train that. So. So with the teaching part, we want them to show us that we can depend on you to be on the floor and make a correct decision, whether it's through cueing an exercise to a student athlete or if it's an exercise modification because the athlete has a tweak soft issue thing that might be holding them back from squatting on that day or cleans or snatches, whatever we're going on with. Show us that we can trust you. And that's developed through a lot of ways, but the biggest way is through the exercise progressions that we do with our interns. We basically, for about week 4, after they've had time to kind of get familiar with the nuances and ins and outs and the schedule of what really to expect, we start assigning them, each particular intern, an exercise progression that they need to be preparing to teach. And a lot of it is pretty much randomized as far as what intern gets what exercise, but we're also going to be aware if this is basically their first ever in a collegiate weight room, we're not going to start them out on week 1 with a jerk or a snatch. So the core exercises that we utilize here is squat, hang power clean, hang power snatch, and jerk progressions. We want those exercises not necessarily because every one of us implements those within our programming, but because the complexity of those, the challenge of those movements to teach them to a student athlete who may never have any experience in the weight room at all. So the complexity of those movements and being able to appreciate all the different moving parts within those specific exercises. So they have basically a week to prepare. Coach Quiggle assigns them their particular movement. They have a week to go out on their own and come up with their own approach to teaching that. The only standardized things that they know that must be ready for is that they're going to have 15 minutes to teach it to anywhere from 2 to 6 mock student athletes. Sometimes they're real student athletes. Sometimes they're some of us up there playing the role of a mock student athlete. So that's how that is kind of stripped down and built for them. So within that week, they must check off with a full-time staff member on their progression. They just walk us through it A to Z, either on a whiteboard or we'll go out there on the floor with them and have them do a trial run. And that is a big part of the learning process for that week. And we don't tell them if I'm getting some feedback from one of our interns when he's going through his snatch progression, and I ask him some questions, I don't try to influence him to do it the way maybe he saw me teach it a week prior with a team. I just want to make sure he's confident in why he's going with a certain cue or employing a different type of progression than maybe what I've used in the past. So just finding his best way or her best way to teach those methods. So, and then once we get into actual the teaching and cueing and having that floor presence, we want them to utilize many different cues. They want to be able to reach many. And by reaching many, I mean 10 to 30 student athletes on the floor, and you're teaching a movement. You have a lot of different personalities, a lot of different backgrounds. You have many different learning styles. So cueing internally and externally. You have speaking with inclusion, and just being aware of who your audience is and how they might perceive you. So I'm going to go in, and I have a video right here of one of our current interns. And Coach Quiggle spoke on this a second ago about who's to define what this stereotypical mold is for a strength coach. This is, when the athletes run around, I call him E-Rock, but this is Coach Rockholtz, Coach Eric Rockholtz. And he come to us from a program with strictly an athletic training background. And week one, not gonna lie, it was atrocious on his squat progressions. We made him redo it. But you're gonna see here, the short clip, he's gonna go through his, this is just a clip of his snatch progression and how he's able to scan and how he's able to zoom in and out, and he's gonna give an external cue by cueing knee alignment. He's cueing the weight distribution over the foot. He's cueing retracing the bar path down. He's covering all those different types of elements that should be addressed to cover all the different learning styles within a group. And man, he's grown tremendously. And he has a certain skill set that I know I'm very deficient in with regards to the athletic training side of things. So having that right there, and he's able to relate to me on the floor with strength and conditioning, it's awesome. And they all of our interns, a lot of them are sitting right here, and one of them's up here with us. They all have a certain skill set, a certain niche. And like I said, it goes back to the screening process of finding that and then exploiting that, and then they just roll with it, and we see their confidence go, and then they want to get better at it, and also being aware of what they're not so good at. So with the progressions, basically have 15 minutes to do this. And this is just, I think, a 30-second clip. We time them, we videotape them. All of us are sitting up there like a panel of American Idol, and when they get done, we give them feedback. We say, hey, this went well, this was awful, and we tell them why. And they write their notes down, they're sitting there, and they go back, and these videos are always on our iPads in our offices, and they come in and they'll review them late at night, and they'll see the mistakes that they made or the good things that they did. So it's the constant learning process and the teaching elements with that. So with the teaching stuff, tying into the education, and with these things, with the feedback that we give them, I like this quote I overheard on a podcast is, no problem can be solved with the same mindset that created it. So it's learning through a different format. It's getting different perspective through the late night discussions with Coach Maxwell. And Coach Dinkelman is going to come up here and touch on the education process.
So education is a huge part of what we do. Like Coach Walrod said, we're talking about coaching and teaching on the floor, but then educating them on why we do what we do every single day. So all of us have a huge part in our education process. We spend time talking about our programs, why we're doing what they do. All of them have a sheet on the floor, so they are fully aware of what's going on, what things should be looking like, and so that way they're comfortable coaching. But from an actual education portion, Coach Evans is our main point. This is his baby. Coach Maxwell will spend time with him doing a general training overview. He'll talk on a few things with them, just big picture. So accommodation, specificity, individualization, overload, stuff like that. Then Coach Evans will spend a lot of time taking them through these specific things. So we talk about adaptation fundamentals, specific things, homeostasis, allostasis, multi-system, and the complexity of the body and all those systems and how they can be stressed through different things, not just training in the weight room or practice, things outside of that, social, and stuff like that. So then he'll talk to him about preparedness and readiness curve. and what that looks like and implementing that with their training. Periodization, a general overview of that, talking about different types of periodization, how and why to implement that. That's a big thing. And one thing that he always, this is what he told me to make sure I said this is his, kind of his saying to them, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And that's what we implement with them, making sure they understand just because it's on that piece of paper doesn't mean you have to do it, okay? So you have to be ready for those curveballs. Kids coming in from a practice, they might have sustained an injury. What's your plan B? What's your plan C? You had this high-intensity workout. Well, they just got blown up at practice and everyone's destroyed. What are you going to do, okay? You're not just going to go with plan A because that's on the sheet and that's what we've got to do. So making sure that they understand you need to have another plan. Then we talk about energetics and the applications of those, what they are, the relationships between them. He'll talk a little bit about the myths that surround their development. So, and then also assess them for different sports. So what are some tests that you might do to gauge these different energetics? And then how to specifically develop those. And then that leads into these special topics. So jump training, he'll go through different progressions, how to sequence those within your training, different adaptations that come along with that, and then going into our velocity-based training. So what does that look like? Talking about different qualities that you can develop through using specifically our gym aware units, specific parameters that we use when we're developing, strength, power, and things like that. And then moving on to Excel. He'll talk to them. Some of these kids come in and they've never written a program before or even used Microsoft Excel. So just going over the basic fundamentals of Excel, making sure they have a good handle on those before they go out to their first job, making sure that they're good with writing programs within Excel. And then maybe touch on macros. Coach Walrod actually spends a lot of time taking them through our template. It's kind of extensive, but just making sure that they understand how to use Excel. And then our technologies. This is a big part of what we do. We learn by doing. We allow them to use the GymAware in their own training. The Omega Wave, they test. A lot of them test every single day. So making sure that they understand that. Tensiomyography, which is short term, we call it TMG. We let them get involved with watching us and observing as we test our student athletes on that unit, and then educating them on the information that we're getting back from these specific technologies. So what are our conversations with our athletic trainers based on the information we're getting from our TMG or our Omega Wave? What are you calling to tell the coach about the readings on the Omega Wave that day? Then they also have another really unique experience. Coach Evans teaches a class in our Human Health and Phys department on campus. It's called the Scientific Basis of Training for Elite Performance. They're allowed to sit in on that class. We encourage that it's a full semester commitment. They meet twice a week for an hour. And this really promotes the education process, not only within the class. It's more of a sit-in. We don't really... he doesn't encourage them to get super interactive because it is a student, at the University of Iowa, but then it just really allows for conversation outside of the class. So they come back in, I frequently am asking, what did you learn in class today? How would you implement it? What do you think about that? And just, again, education. And then informal discussions is probably, like everybody's talked on, spending late nights talking on the turf after a group. Sometimes those informal discussions go from a full-time and 2 interns to 3 full-times and 6 of our interns, and it turns in an hour-long discussion sitting out on the racks, talking about training, talking about life, and that's really a big part of what we do. We want to make sure we're very approachable. The door is always open. We encourage them to ask questions. When they don't, then we seek them out to, maybe address why aren't you asking questions, other things you don't understand. So that's a really, really important part of what we do. And then as far as my specific role within the program, we talk about developing their cover letter, their resume, and their reference list, building portfolios, job search, mock interview. this is, a small part, but we just want to make sure that they're fully prepared for that next step, whether it's a GA or another internship or that full-time gig. So I'll sit down with them. They'll bring their resumes updated with all their current Iowa information, and then we'll sit down. I'll go over specific layouts and templates, wording, things that should be included on your resume, maybe some things it's time to take off. And then we'll go back and review those. After I sit down one-on-one with each and every one of them, I get out my red pen and I'm rocking and rolling on those, letting know some corrections just to make sure that they're ready for that next step. We'll talk about cover letters and how to write those. There's no such thing as a generic cover letter. Each time they write them, we want to make sure that they're specific to that job. Are they highlighting the qualifications in that specific job description? Make sure they're highlighting their specific skill set and their experiences that makes them, the best person for that job. Then we'll talk about the reference list. So who is on it? Talking about maybe having someone from academics if you're doing a GA position, your former professors, or then having us on there. So it needs to be a plethora of experiences. So it's not just all of us from the University of Iowa. Talking to them, do they know their reference? Okay, have you asked them if they can be your reference? Are you updating them on what you're doing, your goals, your objectives, things like that? So making sure you're keeping your references in the loop, especially like what's your next step? I've applied for this job, I've applied for that job, making sure that they understand these people need to know what is going on. And then building our portfolio. A lot of people come in, and I've seen this even with full-time. They don't even know what that is. They don't have one. They go to a job interview, they think their reference and cover letter is it. Well, that's not it anymore. You have to be prepared. Highlight what you're good at. The special experiences that you've had, highlighting those in your portfolio. So we're talking about what should be in there, coaching, training philosophy, certain projects that maybe you've done as an intern or an undergrad, highlighting those within the portfolio, and how to tailor those to the specific job if you're going on campus, what that should look like. So if you're meeting with the basketball coach, making sure that you have the annual plan for that team, how you're going to develop specific energetics, examples of how you're going to develop those energetics for each respective sport that you're meeting with. Then we talk about proper job search. So, how to properly contact a coach whenever you've applied for a position, and proper etiquette with emails, and making sure that they're fully reading these job descriptions and not just applying for everything that's posted on Football Scoop or on the CSCCA website. Then we'll do mock interviews. So whether it's a Skype, a phone call, in person, we've had it before. One of our former interns had an on-campus interview. We took her resume and itinerary and cover letters and all that, got it all prepped, and made her dress up, come in. We got sport coaches involved. They interviewed her. We went through the whole itinerary to make sure she was prepared when she went on campus. So that's a really big part of what we do. We honestly really want them to do well. We spend a ton of time educating them, a ton of time. I still look at resumes, portfolios, and that from interns from a year and a half ago. So just continually giving those skills and that mindset that to excel at what they're doing. And then we'll do a few small talks of just the little things. So talking about what is their voicemail. So if I'm calling you as a prospective employer to leave a voicemail, what does it sound like? Is it appropriate? Talking about what we said, social media. So we're on the other end this time. I'm assuming you all would Google them, look at their social media accounts, so we want to make sure they're reflecting our staff in the best light. Talking about thank you emails, thank you handwritten cards. If you're going on an interview, you are to write a thank you card to every single person you met. A lot of people don't do that. So what are you doing to set yourself apart from everybody else? And that's really a big part of what we do. So now I would like to introduce one of our former interns. He's going to speak on his experience at the University of Iowa, Mr. Bryant Ferrati.
All right. Hi, my name is Bryant Ferrati. I'm currently a graduate assistant strength conditioning coach at the University of Texas at Arlington. Prior to my time at UT Arlington, I was a volunteer coach at the University of Iowa. I want to say thank you, Coach Maxwell and the entire staff, for giving me this opportunity to speak on behalf of all of our volunteer coaches. First thing I wanted to start with was my definition of empowering and empowerment. Oh, shoot. My definition is, or what it means to me is motivation, it lasts moments, but to empower and inspire, that's to give someone power over their own life and the actions they have and they make, and breathe life into someone. And I believe that impact, it lasts a lifetime, not just moments. So I kind of use that to help form these 3 pillars that help me describe our experience as volunteer coaches. The first one is the vision and the why. Second one is challenging you to think differently, and last is the value of the little things. So first, the vision and the why. The entire staff, they made that vision and why known to every single volunteer coach from day one. So the vision of where they wanted to go, what they wanted to accomplish, and their why of why they do what they do, and that's in everything. So the vision was just pursuing to make a positive impact on student athletes' lives. And with that, it created a very unique dynamic. So with that unique dynamic, it was like a family, and we were a team. So we were always pursuing this vision as a team and a family, and we still are a family. That's the best part. So even though we've all left Iowa, this impact is still stuck with us. And just to kind of borrow something from John Gordon and his book, The Energy Bus, was they allowed us to get on their bus and pursue this vision with them. So it wasn't just for them. We weren't just there working for them. We got to be a part of something bigger than ourselves and pursue that vision of impacting student athletes' lives with them, and then leading with that why every single day. Just kind of a story to tie that in was my interview. I actually hadn't met the staff. I'm from Seattle, so I'd never even been to Iowa, and I had an interview with Coach Quiggle, and just from her talk, it had me hooked. Just her authentic passion and enthusiasm for the vision, which was shared during our 40-minute to hour interview of where they wanted to go as a staff and the impact they wanted to have was shared. And I didn't know it all, but I had some idea of what they wanted to do and the impact they wanted to have. And that had a tremendous impact on me as well as all the other volunteer coaches. So the next is challenging us to think differently. So that is just a daily devotion to develop as a critically thinking coach. So that's in everything we do, asking ourselves, the other volunteer coaches, and the entire staff, why? Can you explain more? Can you explain it so I can get a better understanding, or look at that from another perspective? And that's just always to be prepared, to have that tool in your back pocket so you can be prepared in every situation. And just that development of always asking why and challenging us to think differently just helped us grow immensely. And with that, it was a very liberating experience. They also remind you it's okay to be different. That kind of let a weight off our back, and you can pursue like open doors, and you're not afraid to fail. And you don't have to fit this mold and be like everybody else. It's okay to be a little weird or a little different. And that was a very liberating experience, especially for myself. To kind of tie this in was our progression. So at the very end, like Coach Walrod touched on, was they'd give us our feedback and ask us why we chose things. And if we could explain why, then we were doing pretty well. And there's some other things that maybe we didn't speak as well on, and that was what we needed to work on. So we would take a perspective from Coach Maxwell, Coach Dinkelman, and the entire staff, and use that to create our best self and our best progression. They didn't want us to be, once we leave Iowa, be like, Coach Maxwell number 2, I got my progression, I'm going to do it just like him. They want us to take bits and pieces to create our best self and our best progression, because ultimately we're the ones coaching. So when we move on, we're the ones coaching our athletes. So we need a progression that we're comfortable with that's also effective in teaching our athletes. And just another story to kind of tie that in was between volunteer coaches, we would also challenge each other to think differently. So asking why, or how do you apply that with the articles we were reading, with our class, or the teams that we worked with, because we all didn't some of us work together, like 1 or 2 on a certain team. We weren't all every single team. And with that, leaving Iowa, we created a Google Plus page where we would stay in contact and post articles. And that was just a way for us to collaborate and post more information. And actually, I had to write a paper for graduate school on cold water immersion. And I posted an article that I was using in my perspective. And I actually had 5 or 6 articles posted within like 2 to 3 days of the entire volunteer coaches and their opinions. And I actually used that in my paper in my presentation. So lastly, the vision and the why challenges to think differently is the value of the little things. And Iowa has really instilled this in all of us. It's everyone knows that the big things are important, but most people look past the little stuff. But putting your passion and your time and your effort to doing every little thing to the best of your ability is what's going to make the difference in impacting every student athlete, and not just performance, but in their life. And Iowa's really instilled that in us, to be prepared in every situation. And that goes to our font on our resume, or the spacing between on our resumes, to how to communicate with one athlete in a specific situation, or communicating with a group of athletes, or even a sport coach. It's just in everything we did, to even hanging up all those little annoying bands on every single rack, just so you were prepared and you could react to maybe something that changed on the floor. It was just being prepared, and the value of every little thing you do can separate you from being good and great. And kind of a story to tie that in is last year's CSCCA conference. It was Coach Maxwell, myself, and 5 other volunteer coaches. We were actually driving back to Iowa from Salt Lake City, which is about a 17-hour drive in a van. And it was my turn to drive, and we were driving through Wyoming, and Coach Maxwell was touching on just values and the profession and life. And one thing that's just really stuck with me, and I believe it's stuck with all of us, is doing every little thing to the best of your ability is how you show your true character. And I want to show my true character to my athletes as well as the staff that I work with every single day, so I can have a tremendous impact. And that's just really stuck with me. And I try to do every little thing to the best of my ability. And I just want to say thank you again to the entire staff, as well as all the volunteer coaches, for the impact that you had on me. You've helped me be the best I can. And that's being a professional, a coach, a mentor, a leader, a critical thinker, a friend, and a person with high character. So thank you.